Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.
In this podcast, we'll talk about waste, more specifically about the EU's plans to revise the rules governing shipments of waste to ensure they allow for a more efficient circular economy and help combat waste trafficking. Want to know more? Stay with us.
Did you know that in 2020, the EU exported around 33 million tons of waste to non-EU countries?
That's correct. Mostly to Turkey, but also India, the UK, Switzerland, Norway, Indonesia, and Pakistan. So, what kind of waste do we export?
Well, it's mainly ferrous and non-ferrous metal scrap, as well as paper, plastic, textile and glass. And between EU countries, nearly 70 million tons of waste are shipped each year.
And you know the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Indeed, and the fact is, waste contains valuable secondary raw materials. So waste trade has an enormous potential for developing economies of scale for recycling, boosting the production of high-quality secondary raw materials, and increasing circularity. Let's hear the European Commissioner for Environment, Oceans and Fisheries, Virginijus Sinkovicius.
Today, only 12% of raw materials used in EU industry come from recycling. This is not a number that satisfies our circular economy ambition. That's what we want to encourage, so that more materials are kept in the loop and returned to the EU economy as secondary raw materials.
On the other hand, when waste is not properly managed, it can have disastrous consequences for the environment and human health, as we've seen in some developing countries where toxic waste from Europe has been dumped in the past.
This is why the Commission proposed in November 2021 to update the rules governing shipments of waste. The three main goals are to make it easier to transport waste for reuse and recycling to support the transition to a circular economy, to ensure that waste shipped outside the EU is sustainably managed, and to better tackle illegal waste shipments, which is becoming a profitable business for criminals. Here's Commissioner Sinkovicius again.
Between 15 and 30% of waste shipments are likely illegal, worth 9.5 billion annually. So we want to strengthen Commission's role to investigate waste trafficking in the EU through OLAF, our anti-fraud office, which will support member states' investigations on the ground.
Currently, transboundary shipments of waste are regulated by the 2006 Waste Shipment Regulation. This implements the Basel Convention, which seeks to ensure that hazardous wastes are managed and disposed of in an environmentally sustainable way.
Both the Convention and current EU laws ban exports of hazardous waste from OECD countries to non-OECD countries and set up strict control procedures.
The EU's Waste Shipment Regulation also transposes the provisions of the OECD decision, establishing a control system for waste shipments for recovery within the OECD area. It sets out two types of control procedures for the shipment of waste. Here's Vivienne Halleux from the European Parliamentary Research Service.
Shipments of hazardous waste and waste destined for disposal are subject to the notification procedure. It requires the prior written consent of the competent authorities of the countries of dispatch, transit and destination. For shipments of non-hazardous waste within the EU and OECD, there is usually no need for the prior consent of the authorities, but information obligations apply. Non-OECD countries may indicate whether they accept non-hazardous waste for recovery, and if so, under which control procedure.
So what would the new EU rules change? Stay with us.
Well, if adopted by the European Parliament and the Council, the new measures will impose high standards for waste management in third countries that import waste from the EU. The new measures are also expected to encourage the uptake of recycled materials in the EU, which have a much lower carbon footprint than primary raw materials currently used by the industry.
To unlock the potential of the EU waste market and boost the circular economy, the new measures for shipments of waste between EU countries include the full digitalisation of all procedures, a fast-track system for shipments of waste destined to certified facilities, a harmonised classification of waste at EU level, and stricter conditions for shipments of waste for incineration or landfilling.
And to ensure that the export of waste from EU to third countries is managed sustainably, waste exports to non-OECD countries will be restricted and only allowed if third countries indicate they're willing to receive certain wastes and are able to treat them properly.
Waste shipments to OECD countries will be monitored and can be suspended in case of a surge in waste exports to one country with a risk to the environment or public health.
Exporters will also have to perform independent audits to demonstrate that the facilities treat waste in an environmentally sustainable way.
To better fight illegal shipments of waste and reduce environmental crime, the Commission has proposed to set up a waste shipment enforcement group that would facilitate cooperation and coordination between member states to better prevent and detect illegal shipments.
The future measures on the export of waste will start applying 3 years after the entry into force of the new regulation. But first, it must be adopted by the European Parliament and the Council. So, what are the views of stakeholders?
In the European Parliament, the file has been referred to the Environment Committee, and we've talked to the rapporteur, Pernille Weiss. Here's what she had to say.
The current waste shipment regulation is old-fashioned. It's linear. It doesn't make the work as it could do for the environment and for the climate transition. And also, it has too many loopholes for waste crime to develop. And that is why it's now being recasted. We want now the waste shipment regulation to be truly based on circular economy. We want it to be digital and easy to work with. And we want it to protect us against waste crime.
While supporting the proposed streamlining and digitalisation of procedures, representatives of the waste management sector and recycling industries have stressed the need for significant improvements to ensure that the new regulation fulfils its objectives, in particular as regards exports of waste. Here's Emmanuel Katrakis, Secretary-General of the European Recycling Industries Confederation.
We advocate for two main objectives. First, simplification of waste shipment procedures to accelerate the transitions towards a circular economy. And point number two, for free, fair and sustainable trade of raw materials from recycling, which is essential to safeguard the competitiveness of the recycling industry.
Environmental NGOs welcome the proposal but want some improvements. Here's Stefan Aditi, Director of Policy Integration and Circular Economy at the European Environmental Bureau.
The European Environmental Bureau welcomes the proposal on waste shipment regulation as a clear step in the good direction. However, we think it should reflect better the waste treatment hierarchy and make a finer distinction between material recycling and other lower forms of recovery. We also think it should consider a ban by default for OECD countries as for non-OECD countries for plastic waste streams and a better alignment with the Basel Convention.
Want to know more? Check out Vivienne Halleur's full policy brief on the EPRS website or in our app.
This is a European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.
Thanks for listening.